How can Jewish sources help us in these stressful times? Rabbi Professor David Golinkin, president of the Schechter Institutes Incorporated in Jerusalem and a professor of Talmud and Halacha at the Schechter Institute, shared some thoughts with us.
Shalom. First of all, I hope that all of the listeners of Kan English are well, and if not, on a speedy road to recovery. And I thought it was appropriate at this difficult time to go back to the sources and to look for some words of comfort and inspiration from the biblical and rabbinic texts, which are the backbone of the Jewish tradition. So I think that the first reaction to the current situation is prayer. And there's a famous midrash about Jacob, who was about to face Esau after many years of estrangement. And the midrash tells us in Midrash Tanchuma that he did three things. And the first thing that he did was tefillah, he prayed. And as you may know from the Bible, when our biblical ancestors were faced with a crisis, it frequently uses the term Vayitzaku el Adonai or Vayitzak el Adonai, and they called out to God, and then it has the text of what they prayed. And finally, throughout Jewish history, when Jews were faced with a health crisis, they usually used texts from the book of Tehillim, from the book of Psalms. For example, Psalm chapter 121, Shir LaMa'alot Esai Enai Elai Harim, Song of Ascents, I look up my eyes to the mountains, from whence will my help come? Or Psalm 130, Shir LaMa'alot Mimamakim Chaticha Adonai, a Song of Ascents, out of the depths I have called out to God, and similar chapters from the book of Psalms. And of course, they also recited and continue to recite the Misha Berach prayer for those who are ill. So the first reaction to this current crisis is to pray. The second thing that we learn from the Jewish bookshelf is the message of Jewish unity. And we are told in the Talmud in a number of places, Kol Yisrael arivim ze bazeh, all Jews are responsible for one another. And I believe that this has been the strength of the Jewish people throughout history, but Kal Vachomer, how much the more so in times of crisis. So we all need to work together as the Jewish people in Israel and the diaspora to help each other in this difficult time. A third thing that we learn from our sources, in this case from Vayikra Rabbah, the Midrash on the book of Leviticus, is that we are all in the same boat. And this is a mashal, an exemplum, which is found in Vayikra Rabbah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught, it can be compared to people who were in a boat, and one of them took a drill and began to drill under his seat. His fellow passengers said to him, "Why are you doing this?" He said to them, "What do you care? Am I not drilling under me?" They replied, "Because you are sinking the boat with us in it." And I think that the message of this midrash is that the entire world is in the same boat, and if we do not help each other, we are in danger of sinking the entire boat. A fourth lesson that we can learn from our sources is found in Bamidbar chapter 12, Numbers chapter 12, and that message is, leave no one behind. And there we find the story of Miriam, who was shut out of the camp for 7 days with leprosy, and the people did not march until Miriam was readmitted. In other words, she had tzaraat, she had leprosy. Moshe told her to remain outside the camp, and they could have left her there. They could have continued on their journey in the wilderness. But no, they waited for Miriam for 7 days, and from this we learn that when one person is quarantined, the rest of the community must wait for them until they recover. A fifth lesson we can learn from our sources is the importance of talking to each other. And there's an interesting discussion about this in the Babylonian Talmud, Sota 42b, and they're discussing there the verse from Proverbs, Da'aga belev ish yashchena. If there is anxiety in a man's heart, let him, and I will not fill in the blank. And the question is, what does the word yashchena mean? It's a difficult word. One rabbi says that it means that he should put his anxiety out of his mind, which would be the Hebrew term yasiach et da'ato, while the other says that he should discuss his troubles, his de'aga, with others, which would come from the Hebrew word yasiach, to discuss. And it's true that some people deal with crisis by putting it out of their mind. But I think that most people find comfort in talking about the crisis and the problem with other people. So the message of this Talmudic passage is that we should talk to each other and thereby help each other. And finally, the sixth message that I learned from our sources is the message of tikva, or hope. As you may know, from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Hoshana Rabbah, Ashkenazic Jews recite Psalm 27 twice a day. It begins with the famous words, the David Adonai Ori V'ishi, and the final verse of that chapter says, Kaveh el Adonai chazak v'yametz libecha v'kaveh el Adonai. Hope in the Lord, be strong and let your heart take courage, yea, hope in the Lord. And I think it's not a coincidence that the Israeli national anthem is called Hatikva, the hope. And I think that in this difficult time, one of the most important things we can learn from our sources is the message of tikva, or hope. So I hope that as we go through this crisis together, we will carry these insights with us, and we will all work together to overcome this deadly virus as quickly as possible. Shalom and refuah shlema, a speedy recovery to all those who are ill.
Rabbi Professor David Golinkin of the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem.